Hi everybody, this is Kathy from Katz Custom Cakes, and I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. I've had tons of requests on Facebook and inboxing me for my gluten-free bread recipe that I use for my daughter. It is a super moist, super soft bread. You can find the recipe in the Delight Gluten-Free magazine. It's the March and April issue. It's on page 39. It's their white bread loaf. I have changed the recipe. I've made some tweaks to it so that I can have it as moist as possible, and it is unbelievable. So I'm going to share it with you. First, you're going to start off, we're going to be using a bread machine actually. So make sure your insert of your whisk or your mixer in your bread machine is inserted and it's clicked down. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult, but let me try. There we go. You're going to add in your warm water. Make sure it's not hot and it's not too cool, because if it's overly hot, you're going to kill your yeast. If it's too cool, you're not going to make the yeast do anything. So make sure that it's at the right temperature, so basically warm. Next, you're going to add in 4 cups of your gluten-free flour mix that we mixed before. So whenever you're mixing it, don't go inside the bag to mix it. Always scoop it out and fill up your cup, and then use a straight edge spatula or a knife or whatever you have and scrape it off. So you want to ensure that you have a smooth surface. I hope you can see that. So you're going to put 4 cups of that right inside of the baking well. So that's number 2 now. Number 3. And 4. So I'm just going to set my flour to the side. Next, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And you're just throwing everything inside. You don't have to worry about mixing it or anything right now. The next ingredient down on the list is xanthium gum. And the reason they have that listed there is that they've used different flours to create this dough. We already have xanthium gum inside of our flour blend, so I'm not going to add anything extra. So the next part is 1 teaspoon of salt, and just use a bowl to catch the over spillage here. So 1 teaspoon of salt to make sure it's all level. And you're going to use 1 teaspoon of honey. I actually like using more. I use about 1/2 tablespoon. My honey has congealed and don't worry about that. It does happen naturally, and you still can use it. So if it doesn't come out your spout, just squeeze it out into your measuring spoon. And the measuring spoon I'm using right now is a tablespoon, and I just fill it up halfway. And basically adding the honey is going to add sweetness, a little bit of sweetness to your bread, but not only that, it helps with your yeast fermentation, because yeast has to have something sweet to grow on. After that, you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of oil. The recipe in the book calls for olive oil. I just use regular canola oil. You're going to add in your 2 eggs. That's 1. Make sure all the egg yolk comes out. Put your finger inside. Always make sure when you start working with any recipe that your hands are nice and clean. Your hair is tied back so that you don't put any hair into your food. All right. So that was 2 eggs. And then your last ingredient is a package of yeast. I am trying this yeast for the first time. I tend to use a different type of yeast that I normally get at an Asian store, but I have a feeling that my yeast is not working like it should be. So I'm going to give this a try, and I've heard that it works wonders, so we'll see how it goes. So that's basically it for your ingredients. I always like to write down and double check what I need. So everything is inside. It basically looks like a big mess right now. I hope you can see that. I'll bring it a little bit closer. You throw this into your bread machine. I have it at a setting which bakes for 3 hours and 10 minutes. I have an older machine, which is like about 13 years old, so there is no crust selection or a pre-mixing selection. I just pop it in and I set it to setting 3, and that automatically creates my bread. Once it's finished baking, I let it sit in the machine for about 15 minutes, cooling down. Then I remove it and then put it on a cooling rack. So once this is finished baking, I will do that. So we'll see you soon. Bye. Alright guys, so the bread has finally finished baking, and I've let it cool for about half an hour inside of the bread machine with it still plugged in. I haven't turned off any of the functions, so it's basically still warm and warming up the rest of the bread. I just wanted to cook it for a little bit further on a really low temperature. So I'm just going to remove it from the bread machine. Make sure to use your gloves. Alright, so just popped it out, and we're going to turn it over and smack it and wiggle it, and it should pop right out. And that's our gluten-free bread. I just rested on top of a cooling rack, and that just allows the air to cool underneath it as well. If you were to place it on a plate, it would cause condensation and make the bread really soggy. So if you feel the bread, it is really super moist. And if you tap it, it's kind of hard to hear, but it has a hollow sound. That means that's a perfectly baked bread. So I'm just going to bring it a little bit closer to you. Take a look. So hopefully your bread turns out just like this, or even better. If you like what you just saw, please leave comments on the bottom below. And if you want to follow us on Facebook. If you need to write anything to me or anything that you want to see done, please visit us on Katz Custom Cakes at yahoo.com and on Facebook. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon. Bye. Alright guys, so it's morning time again, and I've allowed this to cool overnight. If you go to cut into the bread when it's really hot, you're going to get the bread to squish together, and it's going to become soft and gooey, and that's not what we're looking for. So I've allowed it to stay overnight. I've actually left it uncovered because I wanted it to create a harder crust, and that just allows you to cut it easier. Sorry. And if you cut it when it's really soft, again, you might crush down your bread, and it's completely up to you how soft you want that crust, but I wanted it harder. Now I just wanted to show you the difference between the Udi's bread and my bread, and the size difference. And that's a Udi's bread. I hope you can see that, and you can see how tiny of a sandwich. It is a pretty good bread. I don't really like the flavor of it. And it has this really hard crust that my daughter tends to cut off, so all she's basically eating is maybe a 2-inch square out of here. I don't know if you can really see this, but that is the size difference. And in terms of your carbohydrates and that kind of stuff, you are getting the same amount of value for the 2 slices as well. So completely up to you. If you like the Udi's bread, that's great, stay with it. But at least give this a try and see what you think. So I'm going to cut into this. I'm going to cut it this way because I'm left-handed. So I'm just trimming off the bum area. And as you can hear, it's become a hard crust. Now, it's not hard that it's like, it sounds like I'm sawing, but it's not. It's almost like a Portuguese, what they call a crusty bread, so like a popsicle. And the inner texture is exactly like as if you were having a fresh bun. So I'm just cutting this off. And if you take a look inside, perfection. We have super, I don't know if you can see that, it's so super springy and delicious. So I'm just going to cut off another slice so I can make my daughter a sandwich for school. And it easily just cuts right down. And again, perfection in every slice. So I don't know if you can see that. I'll bring it a little bit closer. And it is beyond soft. Now what I tend to do at this point, completely up to you. You can leave it out, like wrap it up in cling wrap. But I like to wrap it up in cling wrap and put it in the fridge. That just allows it to stay fresher longer. And whenever I go to slice it, again, you still have that hard surface so that your bread doesn't crush down. And you just warm it up in the microwave for about 20-25 seconds. And that creates the same fresh, beautiful bread that's super soft and fantastic. And you have a decent sized sandwich bread. And I'm going to show you again the size of the Udi's and how thick. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me any comments or questions on the bottom. I will give you any links to the actual original recipe, but again, keep in mind that I did change it a little bit. So I will put my list of recipes in there, the ingredients, so that you can follow the recipe and create it just like this. If you are going to bake it in your oven, please follow the directions in the actual magazine. If you are going to bake it in the oven, you will get a hard crust like this. So again, I bake this on a setting 3. I have an older machine, so I don't necessarily know what type of crust you would have to set it at, but I baked it as if it was a 2-pound. It came out to about a 1.5-pound loaf. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please like us here, subscribe, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And it's Katz Imaging Custom Cakes, and I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you soon. Bye!